Alongside Lauren Brownlow from WRALSportsFan.com, I'm Joe Ovias from 99.9 The Fan, and this is for Wake Ed. I guess they want us to talk to the kids, Lauren. They want us to talk to the kids about how we got here, what we do, and how they can get to do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, long, complicated story, as most are, I'm sure.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Let's actually start with how you got started, how you actually ended up getting into sports media, and how you wound up at WRALSportsFan.com.
Yeah, so I've been writing my whole life. I used to love writing stories. I still have binders full of them from when I was young. That's always been a passion of mine. And probably by the time I got into high school, I started getting a little bit into actual journalism, writing for the school newspaper, things like that. I was still writing on my own. And then when I got to college, I actually thought I was going to go to law school, which is a common first choice for people in our business, actually. But was double majoring in that and journalism at UNC. And they didn't have a ton of sports journalism classes back then. They do now. They have significantly more now. But a guy who's the play-by-play voice for the Carolina Panthers now. He was at UNC back then on the radio. Mick Mixon was my professor. And he saw something in my writing that he liked. And he kind of mentored me and encouraged me to pursue that as a career. And I started to think that I could do it. I've always loved sports. I grew up going to sporting events my whole life, watching them on TV with my family and everything else. Certainly basketball, growing up in Greensboro and growing up in North Carolina, and football as well. And so it seemed like combining two things I was passionate about, and got an internship straight out of school as a writer covering UNC, and just sort of kept exploring other opportunities on the way. Eventually got into radio some as well, had a morning show for a hot minute, and still just kind of dabbling in various things, writing for WRALSportsFan.com, features, stories, all kinds of stuff, and doing videos like this one.
We do
somewhat.
we do a lot of videos. That is true.
Yeah, and some radio stuff, some podcasts, and just kind of dabbling in all areas related to sports media, really, at this point.
I did not think I was going to get into radio. When I went to NC State, originally I thought I was going to do computer science, and then I quickly discovered that sitting in front of a computer all day typing out code was not exactly the lifestyle I was looking for. But when I was at NC State, I got involved with the college radio station, WKNC. I started off as a DJ my freshman year and worked my way up to being the general manager my junior and senior year. Originally, I thought I was going to do like FM music radio. I was going to be a rock jock, Lauren. Which,
I mean, you would have enjoyed that.
I would have enjoyed it, but the way the industry was going, music on FM radio was starting to become antiquated back in the year 2000, okay? I mean, the kids today will listen to music on their phone. Back in the year 2000, that was not something that we were doing, but things were obviously going in that direction because of MP3s. But I still wanted to do radio. I was fascinated by radio. So I applied at various different radio stations, from doing things like promotional work, like handing out stickers and goodies and things like that at a concert, to where I actually ended up getting a job, a part-time job, at 850 The Buzz, which was the sports talk station at the time. And from there, it went from... my educational background was to do computer science, eventually business management. But what I do, and I think, Lauren, you can kind of back me up on this, ends up being with opportunity. You do pick up other skills. Like for what I was doing at school, which was more tech focused, it allowed me to incorporate my skill of coding into doing things like a blog back in the day, or being a little bit more technologically savvy to get with social media or do videos like this. So my school background ended up helping me for what I do in sports, but ultimately where I got with radio, it came in the form of just life skill, working at the college radio station, picking up as many shifts as I could at 850 The Buzz, and eventually putting myself in position that when an opportunity presented itself to host a show, I was ready to go. And that eventually got to where we are now at 99.9 The Fan. And, it's funny. One of the things that I did not really enjoy doing when I was in school was reading. I never liked English classes. I
loved it.
I never. So the great irony here is, as much as I do talking, I also do a lot of reading now. You spend a lot of time reading game stories, columns, profiles on athletes, just basically consuming as much as you can to prepare yourself for the radio show or what you end up doing with your previews and things like that. I know you've never thought that you'd spend a lot of time in Excel spreadsheets with stats, right? Which I know you do.
Yeah, not necessarily, no, or breaking down advanced stats, because math was never my forte. But, when you can learn to use something that even if you're not as good at it, like for me in math, you can use it in a way that's fun for you, it can become a little bit easier, and that certainly helps. So yeah, using stats in that way has helped me embrace math a little bit more too.
And that's the one thing about our particular business that I don't think that you understand when you're in school. It's really about taking a lot of different things and then translating it to the radio or translating it to the written word or translating it to videos. When we go to a sporting event, we would do what we call an ACC panic room, which is Lauren and I talking about what we had just seen. It really is a fascinating industry where your background can help you in how you present it differently from other people. Like a guy that I used to work with was actually a history major. Another friend of ours who now works at ESPN, his background is in economics, yet he talks about sports on ESPN. But his background in economics allows him to present his opinions and differentiate him from other people in our business. So when he talks about the financial impact of a contract or the financial impact of a team moving to a particular part of town, he has a different kind of insight than I can bring. So the overall point here is that any sort of educational background for our business is useful if you know how to just kind of focus it to your sports opinion.
Yeah, and I think another thing we both agree on too is that you can have an idea in your head of what you want to do. Like, oh, I'm a writer. I don't like being on camera. I don't like radio, et cetera, but you have to kind of dabble in different things as much as you can, even if it's not your main thing, because you kind of need a diverse skill set to work in sports media nowadays. There are very few people who only do one thing nowadays. Yes. There really are. And you have to kind of be open to that and willing to, learn something new.
It's true. When I first started doing this in 2000, 2001, all you had to be concerned with was doing a radio show.
Right.
But what has kept me employable is the best way I could put it. What has kept me employed is having that diverse skill set. And I've done, I've gone back to Cardinal Gibbons where I graduated from high school for their career days, or I've spoken to groups like we did a couple summers ago at the National Association of Sports Media. We did a seminar on podcast. So the point here is, you now need a diverse set of skills to make this job viable. That includes not just doing a radio show. It means doing a podcast. I know you do a podcast about the ACC. Our videos that we do for the ACC Panic Room are a visual podcast, if you will, but you have to be comfortable talking on camera. You also have to be able to get on social media, do some Photoshop skills. I mean, there's just a lot of different things to keep you front and center, because there are so many different ways in which you can get sports opinions or media now that if you're not I never thought I'd do TikTok. And yet, here I am thinking about ways to do TikToks to keep the radio station front and center for a younger audience that might not traditionally listen to the radio.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just really easy to say, like, I'm not comfortable doing X, Y, or Z. I don't like being on camera. I don't like being on camera still. Like, it's, I don't love it. I feel awkward sometimes, but you just kind of have to push through that kind of thing, and you never maybe get great at it, but you get good enough.
No, that's true. That's true. Now, as far as other things that might, skills that you need or things that you probably need to know that I wish I knew before I kind of got into this business, I think people will probably wonder, how much do you get paid? Not a lot. I will tell you right now that if you are looking for a job that is going to make you rich and famous, most of us do not end up rich and famous. Most of us do not end up at ESPN with $1 million contracts.
We also don't get tickets. We have a press pass, but I can't even count the number of times that people have been like, "You give me a ticket to this?" It's like, no, that's not how this works.
You know how long it took for my dad to understand that I just couldn't get him tickets to any old sporting event?
Yeah, I'm just like,
he would ask me, "So can you get me ACC tournament tickets?"
No. You have a way better chance of getting them yourself.
No. Oh, what about Final Four tickets? No, I can't do that. No, so this is not, if you get into the newspaper business or the radio business or the online content business, it is not the most lucrative job. You end up doing it because you love doing it. You actually get a lot of enjoyment of being creative. And that's oftentimes one of the biggest hangups with a creative job, which is, I think I would argue what our jobs are. They're in the creative field, is that you do it because you generally derive a lot of enjoyment from it. Again, that's not to say you can't break big, but understand that the people that you see on ESPN toiled at smaller jobs for a long time before they ended up getting a big break. We can actually use somebody that you and I both admire, Mina Kimes, as a good example of this. If you watch ESPN, you'll see Mina Kimes on a lot of, you'll see her mainly on NFL Live, breaking down NFL news and schemes and things like that. But she actually used to be a business reporter before she eventually moved to ESPN, where she's become this notable star. So there's all sorts of ways you can get to that point, but understand that you often toil away at smaller jobs before you break big, or you might not break big at all. I mean, I know you essentially were a researcher / transcriber for a lot of books.
Well, that was just part of what I did, but yeah.
But that was part of what you did, but that's not a fun job.
No.
It's not a fun job, but it's one of those things that you have to do to kind of have the building blocks to get to you want to get. Look, I used to run the board for Carolina Mudcats games on random Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. That was not a fun job. I was there from about, 7 o'clock in the evening until whenever the baseball game would end, hitting a button to make sure that commercials ran. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to run the board and take phone calls for the morning show that was on at that time. So the point is, there's a lot of not so great jobs or menial jobs that you sometimes have to do in order to get to the point where you want to get to.
Yeah, it's not all, it's usually not all that glamorous, really. That's probably something
But it's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Look, ultimately, we get paid however much that might be to talk about sports.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty fun.
Cool.
We get to go to basketball games and football games and things like that. Ultimately, it is a fun job, and we keep doing this job because it is fun, not because it pays for a mountain house and a beach house. Those things don't exist in my house.
And I guess another thing that's worth keeping in mind is that your schedule is going to be very weird. I mean, when sporting events happen, they don't always happen during the week. They happen on the weekends. News breaks at weird times. It's a weird job in that, you do have time off, obviously, but you're kind of always on the clock. And that can be you have to balance that pretty well. But I wish I had known that a little bit better before.
Yeah, that is something that I wish I knew about too. Lauren is married with a kid. I'm also married. I have 2 kids. And I think you and I can both speak to the fact that our spouses are the real MVPs.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes there will be a Duke Carolina game at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday that's taking you out of your parenting role because you have to work. Being gone from Tuesday through Sunday morning of the ACC tournament, that gets back to your spouse having to parent while you're gone and working. And honestly, we kind of have it easy in that regard. We know people in this business who do play-by-play, who are gone for weeks because of being on the road, back-to-back weeks or whatever it is. I know people that will go on a 2-week road trip and they don't get to see their family and things like that, or really they have no time to kind of come up for air from the start of the season to the end of the season, and then they have their summers for that. The point here is that the schedule is very, very strange. It's not a 9-to-5 job.
No.
Some people thrive in 9-to-5 job settings, having that consistency of a schedule. Others don't mind the kind of, what does the day have for me? Like, I can tell you this, and you back me up on this, no day is the same in my job.
No, not really. Yeah. There's not a lot of, you don't get bored. And,
no.
And another thing worth knowing too is that, you in this business, you're bound to get fired at some point. It's not personal. You just kind of have to pick yourself back up and find something else. Yeah,
there's always a reason. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you, as Lauren mentioned. Sometimes, in my particular case, a company might decide, you know what? We don't want to do sports talk radio anymore. We're going to flip this radio station to country music. What am I supposed to do with that? I don't like country music. Well, I guess I'll try to find another job. So these are all some of the pitfalls and things that you have to overcome in this business in order to keep it going. So hopefully this helps. helps add some context to what we do for a living, helps add some context, some realities to the media business, specifically the sports media business, which Lauren and I do. And by all means, if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to us. I know that WakeEd has our information. Feel free to email us anytime.